Hello, welcome to C3KW. If you're watching on the live stream, good morning. We are so glad that you are here. And if you're watching later on YouTube, thank you so much for tuning in. While you're here, if you want to subscribe, that would be awesome so that you can get updates every time that we post a video. And if this is your first time with the C3KW family, welcome. We would love to get to know you better. And all it takes is just filling out a Connect card. You can go to our website at c3kw.ca/connect to fill out an online Connect card there. Just give us your name and your email and we'll be happy to reach out. Also make sure to follow us on Instagram because lots of our updates and information are posted there as well. Our summer rhythm at C3KW has changed a little bit with the exception of Connect groups. We still have Connect groups running every Monday and Wednesday. We have various groups running at different times. So for more information, you can visit our website at c3kw.ca/connect under the Connect group tab. Our groups are still accepting new members, so don't hesitate to check that out and sign up. Night school will be happening every other Tuesday, and if you'd like to register and find out some more information, head to our website at c3kw.ca/connect under the Night School tab. Every other Thursday, we will be having prayer and communion at 8 o'clock. This is an opportunity for us to pray for our community, our city, and our country, as well as take part in community as a C3KW family. You are invited. And again, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at C3KW for weekly updates.
And hey, Pastor Mike here, and I just want to say a quick thank you to everyone who's given to our church that has allowed us to continue the ministry, to reach out to different areas of our city. And so thank you for that. If you are interested in giving, here are the ways that you can give. You can give online or through e-transfer. They're listed below. And they're just helping us continue to see the mission of Jesus go forward, even in this season. So again, thank you so much. We appreciate it. I'm excited for what God has in the future.
Hey everyone, I'm Alicia. I am one of the kids crew leaders here at C3KW. I am so excited to let you know about some of the new stuff we have coming up for our kids crew. If you want to find out more information about it, you just need to click the kids crew link on our website. That will take you to a Google Drive with some fun videos and curriculum and more information about our kids program. If this is your first time joining us here at C3 and you have kids, when you fill out your Connect card, just make sure to make a note of your kids' names and ages in that message section of the Connect card so that we can get you on our mailing list and get you involved in our kids program going forward. We are so excited to connect with you.
Please join us as we enter a time of worship.
Lord God, Heavenly Father, we just want to come before you this morning. We thank you that you come and find us right where we are, whether it's a high place or a low place, God. And you hear our praises, and you accept them, and you find joy in them. It's in your grace that we come before you and just worship. Let's sing. Oh, how I climb mountains if the mountains were where you hide. Oh, how far I'd scale the valleys if you grace the other side. Oh, how long have I chased rivers from lonely seas to where they rise against the grace descending from the source of its supply. 'Cause in the highlands and the heartache, you're neither more or less inclined. Oh, I will search and stop at nothing. You're just not that hard. Praise you on the mountain. I will praise you when there's mountains in my way. You're the summit where my feet are. So I will praise you in the valleys or the sea. No less God within the shadows. to where you sweep the sinners past. And oh, how fast would you come running if just to shadow me through the night? Trace my steps through all my failures and walk me out the other side. For who could dare ascend the mountain, the valleyed hill called Calvary, but for the one I call Good Shepherd, who like a lamb was slain for me. So I will praise you on the mountain. I will praise you when there's mountains in my way. You're the summit where my feet are. So I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadows. No less faithful when the night leads me astray. 'Cause you're the heaven where my heart is. In the highlands and the heartache all the same. Oh, 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 sing it out. Wherever I walk through, wherever I am, your name can move mountains. Wherever I stand, if ever I walk through the valley of death, I'll sing from the shadows my song of ascent. Wherever I walk through, wherever I am, your name can move mountains. Wherever I stand, if ever I walk through the valley of death, I'll sing from the shadows my song of ascent, my song of ascent. Oh, oh, my song of ascent. Oh, oh. Bravest of all valleys, come the pastures we call grace. A mighty river flowing upwards from a deep but empty grave. So I will praise you on the mountain. I will praise you when there's mountains in my way. 'Cause you're the summit where my feet are. So I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadows. No less faithful when the night leads me astray. 'Cause you're the heaven where my heart is. In the highlands and the heartache all the same.
Well, hey, how awesome was that, worship team? Thank you so much. And hey, if this is your first time engaging with us today, my name is Mike. I'm one of the leaders here at C3. We're pumped to have you engaging, whether that's online, live right now, or later on in the week on YouTube, whether you're seeking, searching, skeptical about faith in God. We are just pumped that you are here. Now, today we're doing something a little different. Normally, I'd be here giving a message, opening up the scriptures and talking about it, and we're still going to do something similar to that, but instead, today we're going to hear a couple stories. I want to read out of Psalm 71, starting in verse 15. It says this: "My mouth will tell of your righteous acts, of your deeds of salvation all the day, for their numbers past my knowledge. With the mighty deeds of the Lord God I will come. I will remind them of your righteousness and yours alone. O God, from my youth you've taught me, and I still proclaim your wondrous deeds." And we want to do exactly that today. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to a few conversations that Emily and I have with a couple people in our community who are going to share what God has been doing in their life over the last couple months and just celebrate that God is speaking, working, and active in our community. Amen? So hey, with that, let's head over to our first conversation. And hey, here we are with Alicia. Hey, Alicia, how you doing?
Hey, Mike and Emily, how you guys doing?
We are good.
I
Hopefully,
realized that you just asked me that and I did not answer and proceeded to ask you instead. So I'm well.
no, all good, all good. We are excited to be chatting with you today about bringing to our community some amazing things that God's been teaching us, and really sort of trying to get into our hearts over the last couple months. And so, really, that's the question. What do you think God's been teaching you, and what are you kind of excited to share into our community?
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So God's taught me a lot, I guess you would say, in the last few months since COVID started. So for those of you who don't know me, hi, I'm Alicia. I'm a third year pharmacy student, which is kind of the biggest part of my identity, especially kind of before COVID hit. And I was in a really tough season where it was an intense semester. I was dealing with, classes with getting ready to go away on rotations we're going next year and stuff like that. There was a lot kind of going on in my student life. And COVID came at a really interesting time because although there was a lot of anxiety related to are people going to get sick, are people I know and love, like, we had to shut down church and stuff like that. There was an element of relief that came. And I remember my roommate actually said to me, I had been praying so hard that God would grant you some rest. And then COVID happened and we had to take a week off of school and all of our classes went to online, and it was just a time to breathe. And it was, in some ways, I find it hard to say it was amazing because it has been like, there's been pain, there's been suffering and stuff like that. But for me, that first couple weeks was just, I needed it. I needed it. I was about this close to burning out, and it was an amazing thing that happened. But then the interesting that happens when you have some time to sit and process like that and rest, you kind of realize that you need to think through and pray through and work through some things. So kind of things got a little bit better as I had that initial rest, and then things kind of took a turn, I would say, a bit for the worse. So I've been struggling with my mental health over the last, really intensely, I would say, over the last couple months. I've been dealing with some deep depression and some anxiety as well. And that's been an interesting journey to go through that when you can't physically be around people. So I'm eternally grateful because, again, God just had a good plan in mind when Kirsten and I were my roommate was able to move in kind of just at the beginning of COVID, and she's been so helpful and so encouraging through the season and stuff like that. But just, it's I like to say that, so God has been stripping away identities that I had that weren't in him.
Wow.
So you and I have talked about, like, we've three have talked about this in the past and stuff like that. Like, when I used to define myself, I would say, the first thing that I would say would be, I'm a pharmacy student, I'm a kids leader, I'm insert any others. One of the things that I used to hold on to really was how joyful I was. Like, everyone was like, oh, you're so joyful, you're so happy. And even when I've told people recently that, oh, I've been struggling with depression, they'll all kind of say, you? Really, you? Like, not in a bad way or anything. They're just shocked because I tend to be smiley. I tend to be happy. I tend to kind of use joy as a way to block the pain that I feel, the kind of issues that I'm having in my life, the places of disconnect, even with God. Just put on a joyful face, put on a smile, and nobody will ask you about it. You won't have to process it and you won't have to deal with it. But when that gets stripped away, because all of a sudden that joy is kind of taken away, it's just been, it's like God said, okay, if this is what you're using as your crutch, like, I don't want to say that he, forced this onto me, that he did this to me, that this is like a punishment or anything like that. But I do think that he's using this season of, I can't be in school right now. I'm working from home. I'm away from people. I'm not feeling joy on a lot of days. There are a lot of days that are hard. And there are a lot of days when I still get up, and even with I've gotten the help that I need and stuff, and I am, and there is wonderful stuff out there. There's help, from doctors, there's help from counselors and stuff. So, like, I would encourage that if anyone's feeling this way too, please go get help, go talk to someone, share with someone who will encourage you through that walk and make sure that you're getting the help. But just to have all of that taken away and the only thing left to be Jesus has been, in a way, really beautiful, because And it's easy. Like there are days when I'm just like, I cannot talk to you right now. Like I am just in so much mental pain today that I can't even talk to you. And sometimes it's just a matter of like, I try to be, diligent in prayer journaling and stuff like that. But there are days just when I can't. And it's those days where, he hears our groanings, he hears our weeping, he's there with us in the valley. And I do believe that he's been there even on those days when I can't. I'm a perfectionist. I like my structure. I like to have my devotional time. I like to have my journal time. I like to have everything laid out nice. And on the days when it's not pretty, he's still there.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, that's amazing. I guess another question I would have on what you just said was how is God, I know we talked about, COVID kind of forced a season of introspection and whatnot, but how do you think God has led you, say in even last month then, to step into places of discomfort and then what has that produced in you?
Yeah. So I'll be totally honest. Like when I talk about there are days when I didn't talk to him, there are days when I did not read the Bible. There are days when I did not read, anything wholesome or uplifting. There were days when I just kind of didn't even really talk to God and just kind of was like, okay, like I recognize that you're there. I'm accepting of the fact that you're there. I just can't do it right now. Like it hurts, man. It hurts. And I don't really understand why. And I think I was actually talking with Allie a while ago about it, about how much shame is like just the worst. Like shame just destroys everything that there is that is good. Because I would go through that season where I'm just like, I'm not doing a good job. And, you think to yourself, I'm not being that good Christian girl. I'm not practicing my disciplines of faith. I'm not doing all of these things that I'm supposed to be doing. And then when it just like kind of clicks, that was last Sunday. Like you preached the sermon and you said the line, like we think a lot about how God loves us, but do you ever think about how God likes you? And it was just like my brain just kind of exploded a little bit. Like it was such a moment where I was like, okay, so even when I don't do those things that are just not to say that you shouldn't practice your disciplines of faith. Like don't ever like will yourself into that, but like, he's not mad. Like he's not mad. He's not sitting there with a tick box saying Alicia didn't pray today. Okay, that's a strike against her, and she's in that other camp, and she's not a big red X, not a good and faithful servant. Her percent dropped another notch, and now she just forget her. Like, and he's not like that. And so much of my life, I really think I've spent like worrying about ticking God off. Worried that one of these days he's just going to be like, well, she's too far gone. She's not doing enough. Like I guess like in my mind, it's always, I haven't ever really gotten the whole it's faith, not works thing. Like in my mind, it's always been, it's faith, but also like I better keep the works going because otherwise the faith might not cut it. Yeah. And that's been a really weird thing to kind of realize, we've been a Christian all this time, been serving all this time, know these things, know the theology, know the facts, but just not to believe that in my soul as deeply as I should. And like, there are days I'm still not there. There are still days where I'm like, why, like what in me is worth it? And we were talking about it after the sermon, and it was like, not being enough doesn't make you worthless. Not being enough is freeing because you don't have to strive for enough. Not being enough just means that there's more room for God to lift you up to his level. Like it's you don't have to try and keep, you're not Sisyphus with the boulder rolling it up and watching it fall down over and over and over again. Because he's got it, he's done it, and there's freedom in that. And I've been thinking this whole time, how is that freeing for me to say that I'm not enough? And part of that's just pride of me saying, having to accept that, no, I'm never going to achieve that myself. But it's just the shame that holds you back. And you say to yourself, like, I'm not enough. But when you realize that it's not a shameful thing to not be enough, it's so freeing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'm sure there are other people maybe feeling very similar to you.
Yeah.
And so not that you could, but in like 2 minutes, we have talked about the discipline, right, of preaching the gospel to yourself.
Yeah.
And it seems like you're growing in that, which is amazing. So kind of picture that person, watching Sunday morning right now or later on YouTube or something like that, who maybe has come through a very similar season, feels some of the same longings for perfection. How would you kind of like preach the gospel to them right now?
So one of the things that's been really helpful as we've been going through is, first of all, like read the Bible. Like, if you're not, it's not a shame thing to not be, but it's so like, our Bible study's been going through Romans. We're up to Romans 8 now because we go through pretty slowly, but like, there's so much hope there. And there's so much, like, the whole Bible just screams out that shame is not a thing that belongs in God's kingdom. And the more you immerse yourself in that, the more you discuss that, the more you find people who will speak that over you when you can't find the words to speak it yourself. Because that's a big thing. Like, I find in my life, I have, like, it's almost like a voice in my head that's louder than God that's screaming, "You're not enough. You should feel ashamed of yourself. You're not doing a good enough job. You'll never measure up." And that voice can get so loud that sometimes it overshadows God's voice that says, "You're my beloved daughter, and you are enough just by nature of being you. You were enough before you took your first breath. You belong to me and you're mine." And if you can't hear that voice, like I say, get in community, find people who will speak that life over you, find people who will pray with you, find people like Emily, who, when I told her that, like, you know, part of being depressed is, I'll be totally honest, yeah, there was a season where I was suicidal, and it's not something I like to say, and it's not something I like to talk about, but there's a power in speaking that truth out loud and saying that does not define me, that is not part of my identity, but it is a symptom of the mental illness that I'm experiencing. And to have someone like Emily come alongside me and say, there is no shame in that, but go see a doctor, make sure you're sticking with your counseling, go get the help that you need, like, find someone who will just be that voice of calm and reason and love over you when you can't speak it loud enough to yourself to overpower the evil. Like, find someone who will, you know, sit you down and just pour truth into your heart when you can't go and seek out the truth yourself, even, because then you hopefully will get to days where there are good days, and there are days when you can seek it out yourself, and, you know, you can open the word and you can hear the voice and you can feel the embrace yourself. But when you know that you're not in that season, just recognize that that's not a failing in you, but go get the help that you need, because there are people there who love you. There are people in this church, in this community, in this family who love you and want to see you flourish and see you thrive. So get in the word when you can. And when, you know, God feels far, he's not far, he's there with you, but find someone who will remind you of that when you can't remind yourself.
Amen. How good. So we get into the word, get some community, because it's true. The gospel is full of hope at all times. Yeah. We are recording this with a family of a couple kids. You want to say goodbye?
Hey, bud.
He's supposed to go to bed. We are recording. Okay, go to bed. Son. Love you. In a second. And so we really appreciate that, Alicia. And yes, I married good.
You darned well did.
No, so and we were so thankful. And again, let's just affirm how beautiful you are, the daughter of God, how much of an encouragement you are to our church, to our family, to our life. And hey, honesty like this is difficult. And so we appreciate you. Thank you for sharing. And hey, church, you know, let us be a church where this kind of atmosphere and help and love can be experienced by all of us. And so, as Alicia said so beautifully, if you're in a space where you're not feeling like you're, surviving and thriving, you need to let someone know. It's why community is so important. And as I think Alicia spoke so beautifully to it, it's not a shameful thing to get the help that we need, you know, and so reach out. And I pray that our community will be a community that doesn't just wait for others to reach out, but actually goes and notices, hey, you've been off. How can I help you? How do I lean in? Man, thank you, Alicia, so much.
Anytime, you guys. Thank you.
And hey, now we're here with Johnny and Cassie. Allow them just to speak into what God's been doing and encourage our community. So guys, what has been going on and how's God been leading you?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having us on. We're pumped to be kind of talking about this and what God's been doing in our lives. And we got married in January and obviously could never have anticipated what was to come for the first 6 months of our marriage. But it's truly been some of the most beautiful 6 months of my life. Like God has been so present in our home and in our marriage. One thing that's been really on my heart is that we've seen so many couples, planning to be married throughout this time as well. And deciding to still get married, even though they weren't able to have the full reception and the full wedding that they probably dreamed of. Many, brides since they were little girls, many of our dear friends still choosing to put their marriage first and, honoring Jesus in that and putting him first in what's actually important about a marriage. And so seeing our friends do that has been really inspiring to us and just a reminder of that. Yes, we were very blessed in the timing of our wedding, that it was, right before the lockdown started. But what actually mattered about that day was every day after it. The vow that we made to each other, that is a lifelong vow. And, we absolutely loved that day, but we've loved every day after even more. And so we've just been so encouraged by so many friends who have chosen to, not postpone their wedding just to have all those Western materialistic things, but to truly, put that what is important first. And that's not to say that that's an easy thing at all, or that we fault anybody who made a different decision. I can't imagine putting myself in that place, but it's been truly inspiring. So that's one big thing that's been on my heart for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's we're very blessed, and to go from a season of long distance that we were in for 4 years to forced quarantine, not being able to be apart from the individual that you love. A lot of people would say that would bring out a ton of new challenges and everything, and it certainly does bring stuff to the forefront. The Lord brings that in His time, and He proves faithful in that. But we're just so thankful that we each have the same mindset in our marriage, that the Lord is above the bickering, that He's above fighting or anything, that we believe the Lord is above it, that He's given us grace in situations that we mess up or that our spouse mess up, and He gives us the love to get out of that situation in a more fruitful and better way.
And to see you guys flourish is beautiful. Truly a testament to God. Now, as I was going to ask, like in the last maybe 4 months, you guys both work full time. You're at home doing, you lead Connect Group, which is amazing. Trying to be, obviously thriving in your marriage. And has there been a kind of rhythm or practice or discipline that have really helped ground you guys in this season?
Yeah, I would say the biggest rhythm or discipline would be we read together every night. So whether it be the Bible or a theological book that we're reading, we'll both read like our individual studies. And then something we love to do is as soon as we're done, we tell the other person what we learned. And then we try to articulate it really well to each other, so that we know that we're able to speak about our faith and about what we just read and what we learned, and then learn both from the study that we're reading ourselves and from the other person, and be able to challenge the other person and ask them questions if they maybe didn't articulate something the best. And so, yeah, that's been huge for us, and something that it's personal, not necessarily that like secret place time with God, but it's the discipline of being in His Word and then doing that together as well. That I think has really, really grounded us in terms of like our leadership of the Connect group and our marriage as well.
Yeah, and we each have our own individual rhythm as well in our walk with the Lord. Cass can get up early and spend time in prayer and do what she needs to do with that time with the Lord. I can't. I'm not wired that way. I can. Yes. Wrong word. But yeah, it's not something that I'm necessarily fully invested in doing in that specific time frame. But there is time for that throughout the day that I do set aside for that, which is always important. You need to do that for your own discipline. And that reading is, yes, we do our individual studies in that, but it is that unifying of this is what our mission is. It's to know Jesus more, and we want to do that together. And so that was something that we learned fairly probably like halfway through quarantine. It's like, this is what we need to do, because we weren't necessarily setting that. It was more of an individual discipline, and yet our unison was in our walk in the Lord and how we respond to certain things and how we go about our daily lives. As again, that is something that Cass and I believe the Lord leads well in each of us and in our marriage. But yeah, that was something that we just realized we needed to bring into our marriage, and it's been amazing.
That is good. How about on an individual level, in this season? I know both of you guys are very, just very aware of God's presence in your life, very aware of how he speaks to you through the word, through each other. I know that, even in our lives individually, that this season has been good to expose some things in us that God wanted to work on and really teach us about how he wants to see us more like Jesus as we get to know him. Has there been like a big kind of lesson individually that God has exposed during this season that you're like, you know what, if I had to testify to what God has grown in me, it's got to be this thing?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. And I think the main thing, I actually shared it with you not that long ago, in that the Lord has made me realize the responsibility of saying that I believe in God and that I believe in Jesus Christ. And like, that responsibility requires so much sacrifice and so much dependency on the Lord that I was very immature in understanding that responsibility. And I've always considered myself to be mature in faith. And yet that, just saying that I believe in God, now understanding that that actually requires me to die daily and to live out the life of Jesus Christ in every way that I can and every way that he is able to do through me. That responsibility is huge. And I was like, once I realized that, and it was actually, it's kind of a funny story, because it was placed in my life, that idea, by someone who struggles with actually declaring that he's a Christian. He says, I feel like I'm not a good enough person to say that I believe in God, because that takes on responsibility, like way too much responsibility that I know in and of myself I'm not able to do. And that opened my eyes to be like, man, this guy wants to be a Christian so bad, but feels like he's not good enough. And I'm like, I sometimes very flimsily, just, if that's a word, just say that I believe in God, because I do. But am I actually willing to take on the responsibility and sacrifices that does take for a Christian to do? And that just made me want to believe in him more, because I know that he's capable of saving me from the things that I wrestle with, that he's capable of just having victory in our marriage and all these things. So that was the biggest thing for me. And it's really been an absolute miracle in my faith, of just actually now really understanding that I have a great responsibility just by uttering, I believe in God. And that responsibility that we have as Christians doesn't bring condemnation when we don't live out the life of Jesus Christ. It brings conviction. And that's exactly what this did. It wasn't condemning the fact that I believe in God and yet I'm not a good person. It was really just convicting me of it. that I need Jesus more and that I want him more, which is just the best thing to realize, because, well, the Lord is all joy, he's all life. I just want him all the time, right? So
yeah, no, I think it's a good idea for us as Christians, especially, right? Because it sounds like the difference between like you and that other guy was that he thought that grace requires earning, when really what it does is empower effort, right? Like Dallas Willard said, grace never opposes effort, it opposes our attitude of earning. And to switch that in the brain is so important, right? That God requires nothing, yet grace empowers a holy life. Grace empowers this new recreation in us. And so that's amazing.
For me, I think the biggest thing that the Lord's been teaching me in this time is Mike, kind of what you were talking about in a recent sermon about the fig tree and really going to the secret place. And I think that's something I often talk to like other women and friends about and kind of preach with my life, is how important that is. But sometimes I can get I can kind of think that time isn't all that important. Like if I've done my readings, then that's enough, like Jesus time for the day. But like actually going to that place where it's just me and him. And I think, you know, the world can weather us and different things can try to take our attention. And as time went on, I realized like in this quarantine that I'd somehow neglected that time again. But it's amazing how it can, when you first start, it can sometimes take, I find, like a couple minutes to really surrender to that time without like looking at your watch or thinking like, okay, what am I doing? But once you get in that rhythm, it's like, you know that you're actually meeting with a person and he speaks to you. And it's for me, it's like Johnny said, it's how I start every day. And it's absolutely amazing. Like if I don't, it's not this ritual that I need to do this every morning, but when I do, the Lord like drastically reframes my thinking and my spirit, and you know has worked crazy changes in my mind and even just what I believe and how I live that out in daily life. And that's something I know that I need to continue with after this season.
Wow, so it seems like there'd be almost like a common theme of like that hungering for more of Jesus that he's brought into you in different ways, clearly, but yet it seems like that language is very similar in your home and in your marriage, that we just want more of him. And not to be like, you know, serious the whole time, but you know, we've been married for 7 years, been together for 12. And when you get like shoved into like really close spaces, you get to notice certain quirks about the other person. Any just like, you know, funny little, hey, I didn't know this before, but like COVID showed me this.
Oh, quirks.
Oh, well, okay. I have one for you. It's not that embarrassing though, but this was mentioned in Johnny's best man speech at our wedding, as he's listed like a few things to let me know about Johnny in case I didn't already, because he lived with him. And he said that he always has to like watch something in order to fall asleep. So he'll like, when we are going to bed, like it takes me like 2 minutes to fall asleep. So it works really well for us, but he'll like cuddle with me until I fall asleep. And then he'll roll over and open his laptop and watch something until he falls asleep, because otherwise he literally won't. So I did not know that before. It's not embarrassing or anything, but it's something new.
Yeah, well, this is funny because we actually just experienced it. Is that when she finishes brushing her teeth, she just throws her toothbrush into the drawer all wet and soggy. And it just gets it literally got all over my hair comb. So I like brush my hair with toothpaste without even realizing sometimes. Or like, that's a little bit
That's
weird.
Actually like a life thing that I've been working on that he's been showing me that I suck at, is awareness. Because there are so many things that I just won't even notice. So it could easily feel, I'm so grateful that it's not something that causes like a fight. But for him, I feel like he could easily feel like I don't care about this, but I literally just didn't even realize. So the toothbrush thing, I was like, I had no idea I was doing that, but it's still something I have to like really focus on.
Yeah.
So I've really asked myself, like, what other areas of my life, like potentially more important areas, has this carried to, and like how can I work on that? If one of us like has a flaw that the other one really notices, it's like, well, I don't want to call that out in you and say you did this and be selfish in that, like, this affected me. It's more like, I want, you know, for the Lord's sake, I want you to be better. So, hey, like, I noticed this. How could we like improve on this? And then if that's the approach from either person, like, it's just an, I'm sorry, like, will you forgive me, and move on. Like, we'll usually end up laughing about it.
I think it's such a beautiful picture, right, of how Jesus does for us, right?
Yes.
His frustration maybe at our sin never gets communicated in like Johnny said earlier, in condemnation. It's actually conviction to righteousness. It's conviction of the Holy Spirit to see us grow. And so why would that not apply in marriage, right? Why would we want to strive for anything less than that? We need to have like a vision. This actually comes from Dallas Willard. Like, you guys know I quote him often, where he talks about even our personal discipleship, but even our marriages, how we have to have a vision for where we want to see God grow us into, right? And seeing that you guys clearly have that. If crisis has hit a young marriage, and for you guys to be able to say, here's our mission, here's our vision, here's our value together, I think it's beautiful. And maybe a lot of us older married people need to kind of get back to the both beauty, simplicity, purity, passion that you guys are showing. So I really appreciate that and speaking that into our community. And if you had someone that was you at the beginning of, say, COVID, okay, like 4 months ago, with where maybe your spirit was agitated or the lessons you had yet to learn, how would you kind of just like lead them in the gospel right now? Like, what would be that kind of just nugget of grace that you just want to show and share with that person?
I think if I think back to like when at my work, we were first told, oh, we're going to be working from home. We don't know for how long. There was definitely like a little bit of this like panic and the unknown, and yeah, just so many questions. So I think for me, it would be that like truth isn't in the moment, in the cultural moment, in this pandemic, in the media. Like, that's not where truth is. The only like concrete truth that we should always return to is Jesus and is the word. So to just, in like any times of uncertainty, to be so grounded in that, and to trust that, and not, what a politician is saying, what a thought leader on the pandemic is saying, like, just Jesus, and to know that he's sovereign, rather than getting too caught up in what the world is saying.
When, for example, COVID came into place, something that spoke to me early on in our relationship, actually probably before our relationship, that the Lord spoke to me, is that this phrase of always being expectant of greatness in the person of Jesus Christ. And literally whenever something comes our way, the nice thing is that we always have a constant. We always have someone that is consistent and consistently good. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important to understand the good part. There's a lot of things that can be consistent, but there is a consistently good person in Jesus Christ that we can turn to. The best part of that is that it's actually truth. Jesus Christ is our truth for joy, our sufficiency, our life. And so to understand that simple truth, in that when COVID came, rather than seeing it as the panic and the life-altering things that are going to come our way, to see it as something that is going to be great, because we have faith in a person that is good, because we have faith in a person that likes to see good for his church and for the mission of the gospel. So I think that's one thing that I would just put out, is to always be expectant of that, to not just think of a small God, but think that he's a lot bigger than everything that comes our way.
Amen. Yeah. He's consistent. He's good. He's consistently good. I like that. Amazing. Guys, thank you so much for speaking into our church and celebrating God with us. We love you guys, and thank you for leading as you do.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you guys for having us.
How good were those chats? I think it's amazing to hear that God is speaking to our community. How awesome was it to hear the vulnerability of Alicia sharing her heart? And hey, everything that she said is just so true. Shame is a liar. We got to just let the gospel destroy that in our life. And with Cassie and Johnny, how good is it to hear that we can put disciplines of faith in our life to see ourselves grow? And that little line at the end that Johnny laid down, that God is consistent, good, and consistently good. Amen. And if this is your first time, again, thank you for being here. And if you want to have more conversations about what it means to follow Jesus, life in faith, we would love to hear from you. You can either reach out right now to one of our hosts or email us at mike@c3kw.ca. Even go online and you can fill out a connect card online that can send an email to me or someone in our team, and we'll get back to you with information and follow-up. So hey, church, I love you. We're for you. I pray you'll go in the grace of God today. Let the mission of God be forever. And hey, one last thing. If you have a story that you want to share with us, we'd love to hear it because we do believe in curating the testimony of God for our community. So let us know. You can send that in via Slack or Instagram, or again, write to me. We'd love to hear what God is doing in your life. Amen. Peace be with you. We'll see you later.